What's going on, guys? Whereabouts in Riverside, Smart? Hello, Tiffany. You guys hear me okay? Give me 5-5. Okay. I like that part of Riverside, Canyon Crest area. It's kind of older. A little more quaint, more upscale. I also like kind of going out to the south side, out of Van Buren, Woodcrest area, getting more more rustic out there. I filled up today. I use premium, and for me, premium was $5.99, so $6. One of the downsides of having a BMW, got to use the premium. What's up there, War Hamster?
Hey, Mr. Ron, how are you?
I'm hanging in there.
But I have gone through 5 days of absolute misery.
Mm-hmm.
My phone was just, you know, the customer service people of Verizon were fantastic, but
Well, you can't judge the entire company, but some people are good, some people are bad.
yeah, I mean, all the customer service people were trying their best. They were friendly, but they just couldn't. I mean, it took 5 days to get my phone to work properly, and that's, I'm going to have to fire them. I'm going to be, I'll sign up for Patriot Mobile tomorrow.
Well, I'm just going to tell you, don't be surprised if you do something like that, and then the quality of your service goes down. I mean, I know you think you're doing a good thing by going over there, and it's all well and good. They have good service and whatnot, but they don't have the bells and whistles that places that like Verizon and AT&T do. In fact, they actually subcontract out to use their networks. So but basically, there's only, as I understand it, there's really only 2, maybe 3 networks in the entire country, and the Patriot Mobiles of the world, what they do is they subcontract out and get to piggyback off of those networks.
Yeah, they're on AT&T's network, so that should be adequate for me.
I'm just saying they may or may not be. You may or may not be happy.
Well, it's a beautiful thing about no contracts.
Oh.
I mean, the only real reason to stay with a major carrier like a Verizon is to finance a new phone, and there's no real reason to do that. You don't actually save any money doing that.
What's going on there, Darren? So, you know what? I'm going to share this in the chat while we're waiting because we have about 6 minutes to go before we're supposed to go live.
I talked to Doug earlier. He should be close to on time.
So you guys check this video out. I'm going to post it in the chat. That is a video of a guy. His name is Stan, and he lives in around Moscow. Well, at least he's in the Moscow time zone. And I saw a video that he had posted several days ago, and it was like I made it my mission in life to find him, and I was successful. I found him. I reached out to him, contacted him, and Warhamster and I and maybe one other person were going to kind of bring him on a kind of a little round table and talk to him about stuff that's going on over there. And he's going to give us some 411 from on the ground in Russia, which I think is extremely important.
When I sent the video originally to Ron, my caption was, "Has this guy been reading my notes?" So I think you guys really ought to check out that video. This guy's pretty sharp, and it's
who? The one that I shared you.
Well, aren't I the one who sent the Russian one to you? Pretty sure it was.
No.
Pretty sure.
No.
I'm gonna go get a replay on it.
I found this. You may have sent one to me, but this particular one I found on Twitter, and then I went deep diving and tried to find him on YouTube.
I think if we go check the replay, I am the one who brought.
I bet you $1 million.
Well, I don't bet money with friends.
Okay, well then I'll bet you the beer that you're going to owe me.
With a lot of confidence.
Very confident.
No,
you did send something to me, but it wasn't this.
No, maybe not that. This was the one I said was 2 minutes. If he's got a longer one, I haven't seen it yet.
This one is about 6.
Okay. Well, I'll get to that after the class.
Tiffany, I don't know. It may be on Glitch in the Matrix. It depends. Yeah, we might do it might be a Glitch in the Matrix thing. I promoted it as a Glitch in the Matrix. The problem is that because of his time zone, we're going to have to conform to his time zone because I want him on as a guest. So that means that it's going to be essentially where it's like, I think we're 11 hours different. So if it's 9 o'clock in the morning here, it's like 8 o'clock in the morning there, or 8 o'clock in the evening there, or vice versa.
So we'll probably line it up for like a 10 p.m. Does that sound right?
Yeah. So 10 p.m. our time is 9 a.m. his time, and that's what he said. So
Tiffany, yeah, Tiffany, if it doesn't go on the Glitch in the Matrix channel, Ron will have it on his Untold History, and I will have it on my personal channel.
Correct. And I may even put it on Untold History anyway.
Yeah, it's part of our interview series. It should go on our channels. Has the chat, any of you guys seen part of our interview series that Ron and I have on our channels? We've done a couple good ones over the last few weeks. I'm actually really enjoying those too.
Do we have another a grassroots person to interview?
Yeah, I was going to talk to you about that. I was going to call you about that, except my phone wasn't working. I got a couple of ideas. There's one guy I know in Georgia who's a precinct committeeman, and the guy's a pretty dynamic personality. He's a successful businessman, a pastor, and he's just taken over his district, and he's got a lot of enthusiasm. I met him really early on in the precinct project stuff after that first started coming out on Bannon when I was working with those guys. So he might be a fun one.
Nice. Tiffany wants to know what your channel is there, Warhamster.
I'm posting a link right now. Speaking of which, if anybody knows somebody who technologically inclined who knows a lot about Rumble, I could use some help on my channel because they accidentally created 2 channels, and now I'm posting double videos sometimes on one channel, not the other, and I don't know if the subscribers are mixed or overlapped, all that stuff. So I would like to get that sorted. So if anybody's an expert on Rumble channels, hook me up. I will be forever in your debt. I was about to say gratitude. How you like my hamster icon today?
You're asleep.
That's the I call it the My Pillow hamster.
Mm-hmm.
He's got
Sounds
his
like
little
me.
teddy bear.
I'm about ready to fall asleep myself. I did not sleep well. But
No, I did not either.
I actually, so I woke up really late. Well, I didn't wake up late. I was trying to go to bed. I laid down early, and it was I couldn't fall asleep, and I was just kind of felt like kind of funky, and I got up, and I guess it was finally about 2 a.m. I got up. I took something to help me sleep. I took some medication to help me sleep, and it didn't really work. I got up, and I just kind of felt like I was having the not palpitations, but I just it was just I don't know if a panic attack, or I don't really know really how to even say it. All I know is I just felt weird, and I got up and I took my blood pressure. My blood pressure was through the freaking roof. So anyway, I took some blood pressure medication, and then I finally fell asleep. That's odd. That never happens to me. My blood pressures, even even for my size, my blood pressure is always it's pretty good. So
Yeah, you're a pretty mellow guy. That makes sense.
well, I've been taking that prednisone for I've been taking prednisone now for about 6 weeks, and I need to get off of that.
Yeah, when I
Prednisone
had
is
to take
just,
when I had to take prednisone for gout a few years back, my sister told me she's not going to prescribe it anymore because you take that steroid too often, it's going to start having a longer term effect on you, negative.
yes, that's right.
It's really good for pain relief. I mean, when I had a bad gout attack, prednisone was the only thing that could wipe it out. So, huge fan of it.
Yeah, it does really well to help me with my with the pain down my leg, but or my back where I had my procedure, but it's not something that I want to do in perpetuity.
No, you do not.
And I think last night was one of the first. That's kind of one of the first inklings that I've had of the long term negative impacts of it. So anyway, it's all it's oh, there's Douglas.
You want to give him a text? It's not like he doesn't know. He'll get here when he gets here.
Well, I mean, if you talk to him.
Looks like Colt Browning is hanging out with Dad.
Yeah.
He may or may not be back to join us. Well, you get the replay, Colt. Got to get those AirPods, whatever they're called.
Kikio's in the house.
Yeah, I saw that. What's up, Mr. Kikio? I think Kikio's got an assignment. You got to bring in some other guys your age for this one of these days. Start recruiting for us. We got to get them young. Around that call we did with a group out of Virginia the other night.
Mm-hmm.
So for the audience, I got some acquaintances, friends around the country, and we did a couple of Zoom calls. Nighttime, bunch of people in the mid to late 20s and early 30s, but it's a pretty sharp group of people who are way ahead of their age group. That's the future. We've got to build the youth.
Wearing that American flag.
Yeah, this shirt was given to me by student in my Temecula class, and it's one of my favorite shirts.
I like it.
Where's your
You look
Dr.
sharp,
Pepper?
Got the olives too, just in
Uh,
case. I won't munch on them unless one of you guys start talking for a long time and I get bored and I'm sleeping and I'm like, oh, I better eat an olive to wake me up.
Yeah, you want to
I'm kidding. That's not
give you
true.
give you an olive monologue break?
Olive monologue break, yeah. Actually, during the radio program, I do that when Alan or Dennis are, talking away. I sit here munch on olives. I don't do the pistachios because they're kind of loud, and I don't want to mute my. But I also have pistachios at my desk. But anyway, good to see everybody.
Side note, I saw something today. You know, I monitor Twitter a little bit here and there, and I monitor the stuff about baseball. And I saw something today because you guys are baseball guys, and I was going to make an observation today. I don't know if it was true or if it was just somebody just bantering a rumor, but they said that the Major League Baseball and the Players Association had agreed to no more bunts.
What?
And I'm like, what?
And that destroys the game.
And I'm just thinking to myself, I was like, are you guys like, is this a joke or is this serious? You're trying to destroy the game to pacify people who aren't even going to be fans. And then it really dawned on me, how is baseball, because baseball I think is baseball is just a pure American sport. And how did baseball grow? Baseball grew because of families. You had large families, and you could play, you have a lot of people playing all at one time. And it was one of those things that there was a tradition where the fathers, taught their sons how to play, and I'm noticing, and this is just an observation that I made, but it seems to me that I'm noticing a direct correlation between smaller and no families to fewer baseball fans.
Baseball started going downhill when they allowed the designated hitter. I've been upset ever since.
Well, yeah, I agree. If you're in the field, you should be hitting, but whatever. I still think that it goes a little, whatever. I think it's a little bit deeper than just the designated hitter. But
they have. I looked up the agreement. And one of the things they are banning is spitting. Yeah, you're going to be able to enforce that.
Mm-hmm.
They try to do that when I was playing college ball. They tried to ban chewing tobacco, and they wanted the umpires to enforce it. And most of the umpires chewed tobacco too, so that didn't happen. Then they gave it to the coaches, and the coaches, most of them chewed. So it was a really hard one in Division I baseball. But I think they finally pulled it off.
But anyway, I don't know. I don't know if it's true or not, but Tiffany or Tracy, no scratching.
That's definitely unenforceable.
Darren, so with the new collective bargaining agreement, they're probably all indications are that the National League is going to adopt a designated hitter. The reason behind that being that it actually puts one more player on the National League roster that actually can play. I don't necessarily agree with it. I like the purity of the pitcher having to hit in the 9-hole. The strategy of the double switches and all that kind of stuff. But I think at this point it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that the National League is also going to adopt the DH. Sadly,
and they did for COVID for some reason. Oh, all of a sudden it'll be safer if we add the DH. Yeah, that was ridiculous. The logic behind that.
Yeah. Well, I don't. We're at 3:06. I didn't want to turn this into a baseball podcast or anything. I just was curious because you guys are baseball guys. If you'd heard that, and
I had not, and it would be very upsetting.
I agree.
I'm looking at an article about it, and it's not outline bunts. It's just It's outlawing bunts in certain situations.
Hmm.
They
And
take away the
whatever.
squeeze.
It's
They take away
also
the.
a bad
They're going to take
rule.
away the most exciting play in baseball, and that's a squeeze play. You can't take that away. Of course, you guys know what
Yeah,
they teach
just
pitchers.
ask Pete Rose.
You know what they ask pitchers to do when a guy squares around a bunt in a squeeze play?
Throw at him.
To throw right at his head,
Mhm.
because that way they can't get the bunt down. The catcher's in a perfect position. You bring him up on a right-handed hitter. You bring him up the line. It's actually a pretty effective trick. And I guess I have hit a couple people right in the chest.
Well, let's get to the Constitution. We are working on Article 2, Section 1.
Yeah,
the
we just got there.
formation of the executive branch.
Establishing the executive branch. Because you guys want to talk about the president, right? Not this president, but the presidency.
The office of the president.
The office of the presidency. Yeah, this one is only interesting when ice cream truck music starts playing. That was an attempt to be funny, and you're supposed to laugh. That's it. You're fired. Now, I have to admit something real quick before we get going. Also, I had not had the opportunity to look at the way you have set up the YouTube page in the last month or so, and I like the way it looks. I like the fact that you have changed the link to be, you got Mr. Constitution, hyphen constitution.com and the Constitution classes in the name of the YouTube page. Looks good.
Mm-hmm.
Easier to find. I adjusted the way I promote it with those changes. So Ron, kudos to you. It looks great.
Thank you.
Warhamster looks as Warhamsterish as always. He's just a circle with a hamster in it.
Apparently, I'm a mouse today. I've been told.
Is that a mouse? I don't know.
Yes.
I don't have my big screen up. I have a small screen up.
All rodents look alike to me.
The squeeze bunt is freedom of speech.
I like small ball. I don't like long ball. It's one of the things I liked about the Angels when Sosha took over. Is they really started playing small ball. The move the runner kind of the strategy.
You mean National League ball?
Yeah, the Angels are still in the Communist American League.
I have mixed feelings about the designated hitter.
You mean this is the Angels played National League style baseball?
They played small ball.
Real baseball.
All right, so let's. I'm an Angels fan, by the way. And when the Angels were playing the Yankees in the playoffs of 2002, the year the Angels won the World Series, I stood in front of Yankee Stadium with an Angels hat on. I did not get spit on. I did not get flipped off. Typically, Red Sox fans, Angel fans don't like each other. But while the Angels were playing the Yankees in the playoffs, when I was in Boston, they were all Angels fans because they hate the Yankees more than they hate the Angels. All right.
Sure.
So Article 2, Section 1. If you've got your pocket Constitution, feel free to break it out. If you don't have one,
it's in the link.
I'm working on the website, but as it stands at this moment, you can go to douglasvgibbs.com/library and then hit historical documents, and you'll find the Constitution link there.
Or you can go to the link in the description. That's already there.
The link in the description. I'll take your word for it. All right. Now, real quick, remember that our Constitution is set up, it's outlined in a very easy to understand fashion. When people ask me, well, how is it, Doug, that you know the Constitution so well in the sense of where things are? Have you memorized it? And I said, no, I remember what article, what section does what. So when we talk about the Constitution, preamble is an introduction. It's not legally binding. Article 1, legislative branch. Article 2, executive branch. Article 3, judicial branch. Article 4, regarding the states. Article 5, regarding amendment process. Article 6, regarding the federal government. Article 7, ratification. Then you start getting into the amendments, and the amendments have their own, whenever they were ratified. But the first 10 are the Bill of Rights. Now, that all said, you're on Article 2. So that's all about the presidency, all about the executive branch. And this is to establish the executive branch and all of that. Now, remember, prior to the Constitution, The United States government was a confederacy. This is changing it to a federal government. We are creating a new governmental system to allow the central government, the larger government, the federal government, to handle the things that a government for a country needs to handle, which typically are external issues, trade with other countries, maritime issues, national border issues, and so on and so forth. And so that's what the idea here is. So then that federal government that's supposed to handle these external issues, these issues that a country's government would handle, then was broken up into three branches: your legislative, your executive, your judicial. Legislative branch has the power to make law, modify law, repeal law. That law does not go into effect, typically, unless the president signs it. They can override a veto without the president's signature, but typically the president signs a law, and then the executive branch, the president, he's not the leader of the free world. He's not the leader of the country. He is not the ruler, the king, or the boss. He is the executive, and his job to execute the laws. And he has a branch with agencies and departments and regulatory agencies and bodies to help him do that, execute the laws. And then once the laws are in place, if there's a problem where a law is violated or something like that, or there's questions about two people hammering against each other under federal law and who is at fault or whatever, then it goes through the judicial process where they apply the law to the case. And then if there is a punishment that needs to be dealt, they will deal the punishment. That's the job of the judicial branch. So we're in this Article 2, executive branch, and it reads, the executive power shall be vested in a president of the United States of America. Now remember Article 1, Section 1, we talked about that word vested. Remember that? Go ahead. Go back to your memory. Vested, V-E-S-T-E-D, vested. To vest something is to transfer or give power to. But if you read the Blackstone commentaries on the law, for one example, there's a number of examples, there's a number of sources, but this is the one I like to go to because it's the one most people are familiar with. And he says that when a power is vested, it is unalienable. What that means is a power, when it's indicated to be vested, such as a contract like the Constitution, that means it's irrevocable. So when it says in Article 1, Section 1, that all legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress, it's saying that the power to make law, modify law, or repeal law only belongs to Congress, and they can't give it away. It's irrevocable. It's theirs and theirs alone. And they can't even give it away, even if they want to. It's theirs, and it stays there. In the executive branch here, it says that the executive power shall be vested in a president. So in other words, the power to execute the law not only belongs to the president and his branch, but he can't give it away. It only belongs and is irrevocable. Only belongs to the president and that branch and cannot be given away. The president can't just say, you know what? Judges, from now on, you get to execute the laws too. No, only the president and the president's branch can execute the law. So the executive power shall be vested in a president of the United States of America. He shall hold his office during the term of 4 years. Now that's interesting. One of the things that the founders believed was best for liberty was to have multiple ways of doing things and making sure that nobody could hold on to too much power. One of the purposes of the Constitution, and I want to make a video about this. I really do. What is the Constitution? What's the purpose? And in that, what will be included in that video and what's included right now for you is this. One of the purposes of the Constitution is to properly distribute power. The problem is, in history, power tends to go into only one direction, one group, one part of government. And when that happens, you have that part of government having, or that part of whatever it is, having all the power. And when all of the power is in one place, it becomes a dangerous thing. You know the saying, right? The quote, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts.
Absolutely. Lord Moncton.
Absolutely. I was expecting everybody to do it in unison, but they're too busy typing in the chat room. That's okay. No, I'm kidding. I heard some of you. I really did. But we know too much power in one place is dangerous, right? We don't want the president to have too much power. We don't want Congress to have too much power. We don't want the judges to have too much power. We don't want the federal government to have all the power. We don't want the states to have all the power. We definitely don't want our governor to have all the power, although here in California, our governor thinks he does. And believe it or not, we don't want the people to have all the power. It's like, Doug, but the will of the people, democracy, consent to the governed. Remember, and we've said this a number of times in this class, democracy is a dangerous thing. Too much power in the hands of only the people is also dangerous. We mess it up too. And Stu's like, what happened to the power of the people? You're such a good communist, Sue. I'm kidding.
Yes, that was a joke.
Throw up the fist, Power to the people. We don't want to have all the power, because what if the people decides, you know what? Certain group of people shouldn't be able to own businesses. Or
Doug, can I ask you a question?
They voted away.
Doug, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Okay. Now, this is the answer is not going to be the traditional answer here. But today, who holds the most power in the government?
The sad reality is not the way it's supposed to be, but what it is, the judges.
So I would disagree with you. There's a really interesting article done by it was in Conservative Treehouse, and they talked about the fourth branch of the government, which is unelected,
the staff,
the intelligence branch.
Oh, the intelligence, even more than the bureaucracy, huh? That's interesting.
They called it the fourth branch of government is the intelligence branch, because
I've heard that the fourth branch is the administrative branch, the deep state.
Right. Again, it's obviously it's not in the Constitution, but they call it the intelligence branch, because the intelligence branch was essentially created out of the Patriot Act, and the Bush and Obama were the ones that were most instrumental in fostering and building that up to the point where we are now, to where they basically run.
Now, I know you don't agree with that. The intelligence branch is.
No,
I want to call it a branch. The intelligence.
I don't agree that the intelligence. I don't. No, of course not. I don't believe that that there is actually a branch of government that is the intelligence branch.
My point is this: the intelligence portion of our government, whatever we want to call it, has always been there a very long time. It didn't just suddenly emerge with the Patriot Act. That's what I'm saying. You probably disagree with.
Well, the intelligence. If you look at the intelligence agencies, what do we have like now? 17 or 18 intelligence agencies, and they all are. They work in cooperation and in and in opposition of each other for jostling for power and control. But I would argue that there's a lot of merit to that argument.
Well, the CIA, though, has become, in many ways, this deep state branch also. I mean, we can go all the way back to even the war between the states, where a lot of finagling was going on. That's interesting, though. I want to see the article.
I'll send you the article. It's very long. There's actually a couple of articles. There's one and then a follow-up, and they're both really lengthy. But I'll send them to you. They're
and then we'll give you guys the report after I read it and think about it and slap it around, throw it against the wall. But anyway, now originally intelligence was supposed to be, and is still for the most part is, under the executive branch. But how much of it answers to the legislators? How much of it answers to nobody in particular but themselves?
Well, the whole point is they sell it as though that the legislative branch is going to have oversight, whether it be Senate or congressional, but they never do. I mean, if you ever do any deep diving into how the formation of the CIA was, the CIA doesn't get any funds from the federal government to conduct any of their operations. They have to fund all of their operations overseas. They don't have any congressional money to do it. That's what that's expressly
prior-
the reason that they use
Opium money,
arms,
things like that.
opium, cocaine,
and
human
Ron,
trafficking.
and prior to the official adaptation of our first intelligence, was the OSS. It was basically multinational law firms were doing all of our intelligent works. And just for the audience, the big Wall Street firm called Sullivan and Cromwell, and they basically they orchestrated the coups, invasions of Hawaii. They did the coup that created Panama, and for the Panama Canal, they took that land away from Colombia, and they were the ones who instigated in 1898 the start of hostilities with Spain, which gave us the invasion of Philippines, Cuba, etc. So it went from law firms, and most of the people that founded the OSS and the CIA came from the same law firms.
Correct.
So that's who the intelligence agencies are. We can go deeper, but let's.
Yeah, that's not the rabbit hole that I really wanted to go down, but it was just it was just something that just kind of grabbed me to say at that moment in time.
Look around for my 357. I don't see it. I was going to shoot the rabbit, get back on the main path, but I don't have my gun with me at the moment, so we'll just have to mosey on back to the main path and leave the rabbit alone. Let me final words with that little discussion is this. Suddenly, Ron and Warhamster, I have a person I want you two to meet and spend some time with. I have a friend who is a retired Navy SEAL and retired CIA. And he's an interesting dude. Now, that said, he will not let me call him. It's like, hey, need to talk. Where do you want to meet? I'll let you know through such and such. And it'll be something totally different. But I mean, the dude's like, everything he does, he stays under the radar. He doesn't. It's like, turn off your phone. We're going to have a discussion. I mean, leave it in your car, that kind of thing. I mean, he is really on the inside, and he's the one that, matter of fact, you and I have had this discussion. I'm not going to go into it, audience. You have to wait for another time, but he's the one that talked to me about Building 7.
Oh, I met him. I've met him.
Have you?
Yeah, he spoke down in.
Oh, that's right. You have met him, Brady. See it? Stop it! God, I hate that. Warhamster.
I think I get a beer every time you guys do it.
All right, owe you a beer on Thursday. Yeah, Warhamster, you haven't, and I think you would. But see, you met him, Ron, but you hadn't spent time with him. But anyway, all right.
Well, I disagree. But I disagree with his take on Building 7. But that's a topic for another day.
Ron's so brilliant, he's disagreeing with the CIA on Building 7. I find it hard to argue with somebody who retired CIA, but that's just me. Yeah, that's right. I did have him come out and talk that one time. He's an interesting guy. We'll go up there to LA County or something. He's up there in Malibu, and we'll.
Yeah, I remember that he came down to speak at that thing down in Temecula, and he was like 45 minutes late.
Yeah, he misjudged the traffic. All right, so let's get back to work. Executive power shall be vested in the President of the United States of America. He shall. Yes, audience, I know some very interesting people. He shall hold his office for a term of 4 years. Okay, this is where I was getting ready to go. So once again, we want this variation. We don't want all the power in the people's hands or any place else. They also wanted to vary the times so that groups couldn't get too friendly and start colluding and get too much power. So 4 years for the presidency. How many years for the House? 2. Senate? 6. Notice that 2, 4, 6. They're varying. They're not exactly the same. Jeez Louise. And so, since they are of different years, that keeps or at least the theory is that'll keep the different branches and different departments and all of that from colluding with each other. Of course, the judges, it's based on good behavior. They all should be gone if that's the case, except for maybe 2 of them. So 4 years, and so George Washington, our first president, served for 4 years, and then he served a second term for 4 years. So he was president for 8 years, and then he ceased to be president of the United States. After he served only 2 terms, and except for 2 presidencies, until Franklin Delano Roosevelt, no president had even tried to go past 2 years. There were 2 presidents that did try. Nobody served more than 2 terms before Franklin Delano Roosevelt, but there were 2 that did go for a 3rd term. I know Warhamster knows who these 2 are, probably, because I think I just talked to him about them not too long ago. Ron, do you know who those 2 are?
I'm sorry. I've been I had too many windows open, and one of them was playing a commercial, and your sound was competing with the commercial. I couldn't hear anything you were saying.
All right. Well, I didn't hear a thing they did.
Yeah.
There were 2 presidents prior to Franklin Delano Roosevelt that tried to be elected a 3rd time.
Was one of them? No, I was going to say one of them was.
One of them you should know for sure.
I don't know.
Well, no, don't tell me.
You don't know Warhamster. All right. Well, let me give you the hint on the first one.
I was going to say one of them was wasn't one of them Grant?
One of them was Grant. You're correct. Who's the other one?
Did Teddy
Jackson?
When Teddy took 4 years off and tried to run for a 3rd term. That's right.
Yeah, he tried to run under the Bull Moose Party, Progressive Party, to split the vote so that Wilson could get in office.
Yeah, he wanted to take out Taft.
Truman couldn't. Tracy Truman couldn't because that was after they had.
Technically he could, because according to that amendment, the person who was president when it was ratified was not affected by that amendment. It was all future presidents.
That's true.
But that's beside the point. But Truman wasn't going to. All right, so 4 years for the term, together with the vice president. So for president, vice president together, chosen for the same term, be elected as follows. Then it goes into how each state shall appoint. That's what it says. Each state shall appoint. Okay, now when it says state, it means the state legislature. Each state shall appoint in such manner as the legislature thereof may direct a number of electors, and this is your number of electoral votes, equal to the whole number of senators and representatives to which the state may be entitled in the Congress, but no senator, representative, or person holding an office of trust or profit under the United States shall be appointed an elector. So an elector cannot be an office holder. Now, I've been doing a lot of research lately about the early electoral college, because I know that there's actually a proposal. I can't remember the number off the top of my head. There's a proposal in front of in the House right now to eliminate the electoral college. The Democrats desperately want to get rid of the electoral college. And when the electors were chosen by the state legislatures, according to my recent research, and this was interesting, I did not know this until recently. I knew that they chose them, and I knew that they used districts, and that they tended to try to choose those who were well known in their districts and appreciated and respected by the population. The people had some say, but ultimately the legislatures made the decision. And it turns out that is true for all of the electors except for 2 of them. In other words, the number of electors that equals the number of representatives in the House were the people's electors. But the remaining 2, the ones that were given because of the Senate, the state legislature chose who they wanted for those last 2. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Even back then, they were like, you choose some, we choose some. It was kind of a check and balance and a little different way of doing things. This bicameral kind of idea of doing things. But anyway, so each state shall appoint in such manner as the legislature thereof may direct the number of electors equal to the whole number of senators and representatives to which the state may be entitled in the Congress, but no senator or representative or person holding an office of trust or profit under the United States shall be appointed elector. Now, the next part, it talks about how they will vote for president. It's in brackets. There's a slight change, but the change is because of the 14th Amendment, and we'll get to that later. I'm sorry, not the 14th Amendment, the 20th Amendment. But anyway, let's read. The electors shall meet in their respective states and vote by ballot for 2 persons, of whom one at least shall not be inhabitant of the same state as themselves. So remember, back then, they weren't voting for president and vice president. They were choosing 2 people for president. And the top 2 winners would be president and vice president. Vice president would be the second place winner. And each of the electors would vote for 2 people. And what it's saying is when they vote for 2 people, if one of the people is from their state, the second person cannot be. This was an attempt to keep the large states from only electing their own people because they would have more electors. And so they were forced to vote for someone not from their state for the second vote. And they shall make a list of all persons voted for and the number of votes for each, which list they shall sign and certify and transmit sealed to the seat of the government of the United States, directed to the president of the Senate. Now, this gets repeated in the 12th and 25th, or I'm sorry, the 12th Amendment. This gets repeated, but it has an adjustment. And when we get to it, we'll get into that. This is right now, this is what was going on at the very beginning. The president of the Senate shall, in the presence of the Senate and House of Representatives, open all the certificates, and the votes shall be then counted. The person having the greatest number of votes shall be president, if such number be a majority of the whole number of electors appointed.
Douglas, can I pause you for a second?
Sure.
I just want to let you know that Kikio's brother, younger brother, is 12 years old and is also here.
Yeah, that would be
Big Pat.
Big Pat. Hi, Big Pat. Younger brother and you're Big Pat. Very good. I'm not.
Hey,
it was.
I love it.
I'm an old guy.
I love
Big
it.
Pat, and I'm thinking, all right.
I love it that we have a. I don't know if Kikio's 13 or 14 or he's obviously young, but I love it. The 16. I love the fact that we now have a 12-year-old in our class.
I've got 2 13-year-olds in my Fallbrook class now in the morning.
Nice.
Homeschoolers. Their mom, as part of their homeschooling, is bringing them to the Constitution class.
It's awesome.
Now, okay, so Darren 15.
No, Darren is saying that Kikio's 15.
Oh, Kiki is 15. Okay, Kikio.
Yeah. Kikio's 15, and then
Kikio, if you were alive during the Founding Fathers time period, you'd be in college for about 2 years by now.
Right.
All right.
That still blows me away.
Isn't that an amazing thing? Yeah, the average age of entrance into Yale and Harvard back then was 13. Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
Yeah.
I just know what I was like at 15, and I don't think I would have done too well in college.
I was just finishing off with.
I think you would have done fine. I think you'd have done fine. They did. People did that all the time. That was what was expected of them. We just have a different expectation because of how we've grown up. But people, 150, 200 years ago, they just started life 10 years earlier. Shit is like, when how old were you in biblical days? How old were you when you got married? You were, 14 and 12 and 13, it's like
biblically adulthood begins at 12.
Right.
And, in Hebrew, there's no word for adolescent.
Mm-hmm.
You're either a child or you're an adult.
Right.
All right. Anyway, so getting back to the electors. So in order to be president, you have to have a majority. So just like, and that's still the same way it is today. Electoral college, 271 to win, right? And if there be more than one to have such majority and have an equal number of votes, then the House of Representatives shall immediately choose by ballot one of them for president. And if no person have a majority, then from the 5 highest on the list, there's a lot more people running for president than just the 2 parties back then. Oh, wait a second. That's still true. The 5 highest on the list, the said House shall in like manner choose the president. But in choosing the president, the votes shall be taken by states. Representation from each state having 1 vote. A quorum for this purpose shall consist of a member or members from 2/3 of the states. So it wasn't based on how many people were there, but how many states had representatives present in the sense of how many states. And a majority of all the states shall be necessary to a choice. In every case, after the choice of the president, the person having the greatest number of votes of electors shall be vice president after the president. So in other words, second place winner in the presidential election became vice president. That's the reason why, like with John Adams and Jefferson, they're opposing parties. Top two guys were the leaders of their parties, and it turned out that was how it finished. Adams beat out Jefferson, so Adams was president, second president of the United States. Jefferson was his vice president.
Is it not technically? Isn't it supposed to still be that way?
Well, no, but technically, what it is supposed to be is that they're supposed to be on separate ballots. That's what you're getting at.
Okay.
So it is.
Because I remember
they could be opposing parties.
Well, because as I recall, the question was, we're supposed to vote for president and vice president separately,
right?
But we vote for them as one ticket,
right?
And we're not and that's not supposed to be the way it works.
No, it's not supposed to be like Trump / Pence and
right
Biden / Harris. What if you don't like who they chose as a vice presidential running mate? Shouldn't you have that choice, or shouldn't the elector have that choice in the original way it was done? The people's vote didn't really matter, though. It was really about the electors, and we'll get to that in a minute. All right, but if there should remain two or more who have equal votes, in other words, if there's a tie for vice president, then it goes to the Senate to choose from them by ballot vice president. So the House for the president, the Senate for the vice president, if the Electoral College doesn't resolve it. In the case of the vice president going to the Senate, that makes sense because the Senate is not only voting for vice president, they're also voting for who's going to be president of the Senate, and we'll get to that later. So that's our Electoral College. Now, I want you to understand something here. Nowhere does it say that the electors are going to vote based on how the people voted, because the people didn't vote for president. Right. And at first, when I talk about this, it upsets people because they're like, well, the people should. Aren't we a democracy? No, we're not. First of all. Second of all, let's think about the purpose of the federal government. This is where I hope for some people starts to make sense. Do you want the president of the United States and the federal government involved in your life? No. They're not your president. They're not your government. Why is that government created? Why was it created? Because, well, now let's back up a little bit. Who's supposed to make laws locally? Local government, right? Local issue, local government. So if it's a city issue, who should be making the law? The city. If it's a county issue, who should be making the law? The county. If it's a state issue, who should be making the law? The state. And if it's federal, the federal government. Then the question is, okay, so what are the authorities regarding that? When it comes to the federal government, their authorities are the external stuff and things that have something to do with the union. Preserving the union, protecting, keeping the union in communication, something like that. Otherwise, it's not their authority. It's the state's authority to handle the stuff that's more directly in our lives. So our government that's closest to us, that's supposed to be dealing directly with us, is not the federal government. It is the state government. So we are, and we always have, even since the beginning, voted for governor and our assembly or state house of representatives, whichever you want to call it. But at the federal level, the only people being voted directly in by the people were the members of the House of Representatives. That was the voice of the people. But
at the federal level.
At the federal level, we're talking just about the House. House voted in by the people. Now, the states, they're the ones that handle the local stuff. They sent delegates to the Constitutional Convention to create a government to handle the country stuff, the external stuff, so that they didn't have to do it anymore. And plus, they were disagreeing on the stuff anyway. It's almost like hiring hiring outside help, almost like, right? You got the hired help, and they're going to handle the external stuff. Who's going to have their schedule freed up so they can handle the stuff they're supposed to by it? The state governments. The purpose of the federal government is so the state governments don't have to handle that stuff. So we have a
Outsourcing.
federal government to handle the external stuff so that the state governments can worry about state stuff. So really, then, the president is not president of the people, is president of this union of states. And if he's president of the union of states, president's government that's there to help the union of states, then who should put him in place? The states. And that's what they did. The states were appointing the electors to vote for who would be president for the union. Now, that does not mean that the people didn't have a voice at all. The way it went back then is the people then would know who their elector was in their district, and they would lobby for their favorite candidate for president to that elector.
But I mean, back then though, the president wasn't necessarily didn't have as large a role in policy.
Right.
The president's role
Well,
was
he did with external policy, but in the sense of
like
dealing with other countries, but not internally, not domestically.
internal and domestically his I mean, that's the whole reason. You know, people look at I mean, let me start over. The American people look too heavily towards a single man as going to be the person who's going to fix all our problems. Call it Trump. All right. They don't want they want, you know, Trump's going to come in and he's going to fix everything for us. And I firmly believe that is one of the main problems in our country today, is the fact that too many people are looking at one person to fix it. It's like we talk about we don't want a dictatorship, yet we behave in such a way that we're advocating for a dictator to come in and fix it all for us. It's kind of mind-boggling. The president,
we've been brainwashed to believe that we need a ruler.
Mm-hmm. The president was the original intent of the president was to essentially just oversee the federal government from an administrative standpoint, and he was, I mean, his primary role in the legislative process was to determining whether or not the legislation was constitutional.
Right. That's what the vetoes originally were all about. It
wasn't to impose his desire or approval, personal. He wasn't supposed to have any personal, feelings about the legislative one way or the other.
Would it be fair to say, Doug, that this started when they deified Washington? Because they had a lot of incentive to make their grand experiment look good?
In other words, after the war between the states?
After the Revolutionary
War the states?
I meant the Revolutionary War. Washington was kind of deified.
Oh, I thought you meant the city.
No, I meant the president.
Well,
they built him up to be a lot more than he actually was. I mean, he did some great things. I'm not taking that away, but yeah, the guy could walk on water. If you read some of the things I've read from back,
well, he got to the point where he even believed he was bulletproof.
There's only one way to put that to the test.
Well, he did, and nobody hit him, but it wasn't because he was bulletproof; it's because everybody was a bad shot. That's beside the point. There's a book, matter of fact, called "Bulletproof Washington" by David Barton. It kind of goes into that. It's kind of interesting. Let's get back to what Ron was saying, because it's an interesting thing. What he's referring to is the veto, specifically. And when it came to that, and I'm actually looking up something at the same time. I'll see if I can find it, because I never can remember the name of this president. I got to look up one. But when it came to James Madison, for example, in 1817, he vetoed a public works bill called the Bonus Bill. And in the veto, he writes, sounds like a good idea, but I can find no constitutional authority for this to become law, so therefore I'm not going to sign it into law. And that was the practice back then. A president didn't veto per se because he disagreed with it. He vetoed because he felt it wasn't constitutional. And I'm still looking up, but I don't know if I'm going to find it here.
Don't be singing for us.
Yeah, I wish I could find it. I should have thought about this before, but I didn't think about it. There's been 11 presidents that have had articles of impeachment go against them. I know that. And just so it's, but only 3 have actually went to trial over it. And the first one, and I can't remember who it was. I want to say it was Andrew Jackson. But I'm not positive. I think it's somebody else now. I'm thinking about it. But anyway, the first president that articles of impeachment were drawn up on him, the reason behind the impeachment was because he kept vetoing bills he disagreed with politically, not because he believed they would be unconstitutional. And they believed, the Congress at the time believed, the only veto should be because of constitutionality questions. And that was a standard set by guys like Jefferson and Madison. The only bills that they vetoed or even considered vetoing, such as that bonus bill under Madison, was because they could not find the authority in the Constitution. And
was it Andrew Johnson in 1868?
Well, Andrew Johnson was the first one that faced a hearing. But there was articles of impeachment on a number of presidents, 2 or 3 presidents before him, 1 or 2, and then there's been a handful since. But I think the total is like 11. And when I say articles of impeachment, the other ones that where they didn't go to trial, and because I think there was 11, right? 4 of them went to trial.
Hey,
Andrew
Doug,
Johnson, Clinton, and Trump twice. There's 4. So that means there's 7 where articles of impeachment have been drawn up, but it didn't pass the House. So it didn't.
Doug, did you ever get through McClanahan's 5 greatest presidents and 5 worst presidents?
No, I've started watching. I just haven't had a chance to finish it yet.
I'm going to be looking forward to your feedback on that one.
Yeah, I've got it. Matter of fact, on one of my tabs. I actually have way too many tabs, but I've got to get to my tabs. But anyway, so yes, you're right, Mr. Partain, that really the attitude was that when it came to the president's veto, the only time he should use it is if he felt something was unconstitutional. And he was like the last constitutional obstacle before something became law. Once it became law, then it's law. But as an obstacle, he's supposed to say, whoa, wait a second. Let me look at the constitutionality of this before I sign it. That was the belief. That's why.
Presidents against whom impeachment resolutions were introduced but no full House vote was held: Ulysses Grant, Grover Cleveland, Herbert Hoover, Harry Truman, Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, George W. Bush, and Joe Biden.
There's one prior to Lincoln.
James Buchanan, 1860.
Buchanan. That's it, Buchanan. Thank you. I knew I'd know it when I heard it. It's Buchanan. And that one was specifically because of his vetoes. They felt his vetoes were too political in nature, and they should have been only regarding constitutionality. But anyway, thank you for looking up the list.
You're welcome.
All right, let's continue. So we've got this. Now, when it comes to these electors, understand that the 12th Amendment made some changes. One of the changes was that the president and vice president would be their own elections. In other words, vice president wouldn't be the second place winner of presidency. There would be a presidential election. There would be a vice presidential election. But if you read the 12th Amendment, they're supposed to be separate elections still. But anyway, get back to where we're at in Article 2. The next thing it says, and this is no longer in brackets, the Congress may determine the time of choosing the electors and the day on which they shall give their votes, which is in December, right now, right now, which day shall be the same throughout the United States. So the electoral votes are determined by the vote of the people in November, but the actual electors don't get together and cast their votes until December. So when people say, "Oh, well, someone's president-elect as of after the November election," actually, technically, they're not. The electors haven't cast their vote yet. The people just told the electors who they want them to vote for. But if you want to get technical, It's not a president-elect until after the electors cast their votes in December. Now, here's one of my favorite parts, and it's going to be a long discussion, but we have 10 minutes, so I'm going to begin the discussion, and we'll finish it next week. Or maybe we can get it all today. I don't know. Depends on how many people raise their hand. No person except a natural-born citizen or a citizen of the United States at the time of the adoption of this Constitution shall be eligible to the office of the president. Natural-born citizen. What's a natural-born citizen? And I usually get the response I usually get from people who don't know is one of two things: someone born on American soil or someone who is naturally born on American soil. Sometimes people will add those few words. But the common belief is if you're born on American soil, you're a natural-born citizen. End of conversation. And that's not true. When it comes to natural-born citizen, first of all, the founders, one of their greatest concerns was outside influence, divided loyalties, divided allegiances. They want to make sure if someone's going to be commander-in-chief, they believe only in America. Full allegiance. That was the key here. Number one. Why? Well, one of the things they were dealing with were the Tories. The Tories, for those of you who are not familiar, T-O-R-I-E-S, Tories, or T-O-R-Y, singular, Tory, were members of American society who still had allegiance to the British crown, the British Empire. The Tories, after the Revolutionary War, most of them moved back to Britain, or moved to Britain, because, well, they had lost the war. They were outsiders, and they were believed to possibly be traitors. And so it was better for them just to get the heck out of Dodge. Many of them, though, stayed behind, and there was a fear that these Tories who lived in the United States would try to sabotage the new government in ways to try to get us back under the umbrella of the British Empire. So therefore, we wanted to make sure that our government was purely American, purely had allegiance to this new country. And the thing about Tories that were different from most of the people in this country is the people who were Tories tended to be the child of at least one parent who was still a citizen or was born in Great Britain. So there was this divided allegiance. So natural-born citizen made sense for the presidency. What is natural-born citizen? Natural-born citizen, according to the definition at the time, and I'll explain in a minute what that means, both parents citizens at the time of their birth. Well, if that's the definition, then President Obama, by his own admission, was not eligible.
Correct. But let's be careful how we say this on YouTube.
The first birther was Hillary.
Well,
I'm disagreeing with Hillary Clinton. They should be happy about
exactly. The first person to really raise this issue was Hillary Clinton, and now we're the conspiracy theorists.
All right, so natural-born citizen. Now, let's go a little deeper here. Final sentence of the 12th Amendment says that the vice president must meet the same eligibility requirements as president. So that means the vice president must also be a natural-born citizen. Our current vice president, while born on American soil, had two parents that were not citizens at the time of her birth. Just saying. If you want to learn about the lawsuit against that, constitutionassociation.com, there's a lawsuit suing her for being ineligible for office. constitutionassociation.com. All right, now, so how do we know, though, that was their definition? First of all. Second of all, we're told by the legal profession right now, the judges and the lawyers and the politicians, no, just being born in American soil is enough. Birthright citizenship. So if you're born in American soil, that automatically makes you a citizen and automatically makes you a natural-born citizen. In fact, they're the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if they're the same thing, then why did they differentiate in the Constitution between the two? Remember what I read. No person except a natural-born citizen or a citizen of the United States at the time of the adoption of the Constitution shall be eligible. Why the difference? Because being a citizen is not the same as a natural born citizen. And if my definition is accurate, both parents being citizens at the time of birth, and the country, the United States of America, her birth certificate was July 4th, 1776, the Declaration of Independence. That means we've been a country since 1776. Constitutional Convention is 1787. That means the oldest natural born citizen in the United States at the time of the writing of the Constitution was 11 years old. Not old enough to run for president. So we needed the caveat or a citizen because the natural born citizens weren't old enough yet. So first of all, natural born citizen and citizen are not the same thing. They're different from each other.
So according to that, Doug, would Hamilton have been eligible?
Yes, because he was a citizen at the time of the adoption, even though he wasn't born. Because at the time, they had not established what citizenship really was. So being an inhabitant was considered citizen at that point. They hadn't really determined yet. And so they hadn't started a naturalization process. Remember, Article 1, Section 8 does what?
Great
Gives Congress the authority to make
question,
laws regarding the
conservative
naturalization
cowboy.
process. They really hadn't created it yet.
Douglas,
Yes.
conservative cowboy just asked a question that I hadn't thought of, and he says, what if someone has dual citizenship?
I would say no, they couldn't be, but let me rephrase this. I think the founding fathers would hate dual citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
It would not be legal in the United States. It would not be allowed. Well, Doug, that's horrible. Well, is it? Do you really want a citizen here that also has an allegiance somewhere else, fighting in the military, voting?
Well, half of Congress has dual citizenship.
Yeah, but theirs is to the Matrix, right? Oh, no, never mind.
Theirs is to the little tiny sliver of a country in the Middle East that claims that they're biblical. I'll leave it at that.
Is it more than half, Ron? Or is it, I know it's a really big number. It's been a while since I looked at it.
It's a lot.
It's like over 100, right?
It's a lot.
Well, it depends on what the definition of is.
That was funny.
I'm glad you got it. All right,
tickled my funny bone.
Now let's wrap this up because we're right there at the top of the hour. So how do we know what they meant the definition to be? Let's say I'm a writer. I write this book and I mention fast food in my book, but I don't define it because all of my readers, you will know what I mean by fast food, right? 200 years from now, an archaeologist finds my book. It's looking through it, fast food. What's fast food? It's not defined in this book. What does it mean? Why is it so fast? Did they have to chase it? Right? You don't know. It's 200 years later, right? So that person is going to have to find other publications that explain what fast food means. So for us, same thing. We've got this book, Constitution, and it's a Raging Smirk. That's like the best.
Isn't that a great name?
Chat room, by the way.
Isn't that a great name?
Anyway,
by the way, I just, you guys got to know that what if you don't know what that depends on what the definition of is. That was Bill Clinton during the impeachment thing back in the 90s when they said, well, they asked him something about what, I don't remember what the question was, but he said in his very lawyerly deposition,
they asked if oral copulation was the same as intercourse. Is it? He says that depends on what the definition of is.
Yeah, it depends on what the definition of is.
I did not have sex with that woman.
Anyway,
that was just thank you, Amy, by the way.
I have a guy joke about that I can't say right now. All right, so we're looking for a publication. So now we have this natural born citizen in the Constitution. We need a publication to look at that says, hey, this is what it means because it's not defined. The publication is Vattel's Law of Nations, which was a book written by a Swiss gentleman in French that was designed to be the legal terms of the day in the civilized world. In 1758, the French version was published. An English translation was published in 1760. 3 copies of that book were on the floor at the Constitutional Convention. Washington brought 1 copy and Franklin brought 2. And I always wondered why Franklin bought 2. And in the last year of looking into stuff, I discovered why Franklin brought 2. He brought 1 French translation, 1 English translation. That way, knowing that it was originally French, if there was a question regarding the English translation, they could go to the original, of which most of those guys knew the language, French. There was an updated English translation published in 1797 because there was a handful of the translations that weren't exactly accurate. However, none of those affected what I'm getting ready to tell you. So, according to Vattel's Law of Nations, natural born citizen means the child of citizen parents, plural. So that publication tells us. Since then, 1790 Immigration Naturalization Act, when they started establishing the immigration law and naturalization, all that in the United States, to make sure everybody understood the definition, they included it in that act. And then, since then, 5 Chief Justices of the United States Supreme Court have used the proper definition as dicta in their case. The latest one being Minor versus Happersett, 1875, where Morrison Waite, the Chief Justice, used that definition because it was over whether or not a woman could inherit some property, and he puts in his opinion that she could, because if she's a natural born citizen, because both parents were citizens, should she not have the ability to inherit no different than a man? And he used the proper definition. So we have 5 Chief Justices of the United States using the proper definition, an act put out by Congress in 1790, and a publication that was used by the founders and appreciated and respected by the founders. And yet we're being argued with that that's not the proper definition because the interpretation of the courts, it's not an interpretation, it's their narrative. But the interpretation of the courts is, well, being born in American soil is enough. And that's not what was originally intended.
Doug, there's a question in the chat from Kikio, and he says, so in order to be a U.S. citizen, both
Natural
parents
born
must
citizen.
be...
I'm not talking about U.S. citizenship.
Yep, well, he asked the question of a U.S. citizen, so do you want to clarify?
Okay. So let me see where it says.
Where is it? Where's the question?
All right. So in order to be a U.S. citizen, both parents must be U.S. citizens. No. In order to be a natural born citizen, in other words, eligible for the presidency, both parents must be citizens at the time of your birth. They don't have to be born citizens. They can be naturalized as long as they're citizens. Like, for example, my kids were born in 85 and 90. My wife didn't naturalize until 2007. So while my children are citizens, they were born here. One of their parents is a citizen. Their mother, who, although not a citizen, had allegiance to the United States, was in the process of immigration. So they are determined to be citizens according to the law. They're not eligible for the presidency. Now, if my wife and I were to have a kid now that she naturalized 2007, which she would never allow just because we're done, that child would be eligible for the presidency. Natural born citizen. Not talking about U.S. citizen. We're talking about natural born citizen.
I'm glad that question was asked because that clears it up for me too. By the way, Doug, it's 5 after.
Yeah. Well, I've got no class in San Juan Capistrano tonight. I am going to speak to a school board in Yucaipa. And once I have video, I will put it out there.
That's right.
Yeah, Colt Browning says 14th Amendment says born and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. And to be honest with you, based on that, our illustrious vice president of today is not even a citizen, but we'll wait until we get to the 14th Amendment for that one. Teaser. All right. Good to see you guys. We will pick up after natural born citizen next week. Now, here's the question. Next week, I'm going to be out of town, but my plan is to take everything with me and be in a room at a library in the town I'm in to make sure I can still do this show.
Okay.
So the goal is to still do it.
That's commitment.
That's
That's
committed.
dedication.
Yeah, if I had the ability to teleport myself, I'd also still do the other classes. But
that's the 15th, the 15th to the 22nd.
Whatever next week is, the 15th.
Next week's 15th. Okay.
Yeah.
So, FYI, on the 28th of March, I'm actually having a medical procedure done, and there is a possibility that I may not be 100% by the 29th. But even if I'm not 100%, I'll still be here enough that I can facilitate the class and let you and Warhamster
let us run it.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a lot of responsibility, Ron. I'm not sure I'm ready for that.
I think you'll be fine.
Without you holding my hand, I don't know, man.
Warhamster's not sure he can put up with Mr. Constitution for an entire hour without Ron holding my leash.
No, just because I see you like 3 times a week these days.
Or more. Yeah.
Well, he sees you.
But it's still not a daily call like it is with your girlfriend, Ron.
Yeah. So yeah, something like that. Something like that.
Well,
although the last several days have been intermittent because he's been at war with Verizon. So
now I want to say goodbye proper before we start chatting here. Chris, thank you. Great class as usual. Colt, exactly. Yeah, thank you. Sue says great class today. All of you, thank you for the kudos. You enjoy it, you like it, share it. Get it out there. Share it some more. And you like it. And also in our chat room, one of our chatters had ordered a book from me and just received it. My latest book, Creator. And she was Joy, I think it was excited to have gotten the book, hasn't cracked into it yet.
I see Colt is asking about a Discord, and Discord's a little complicated for me, and it's might not be complicated for somebody for Kikio's age, but I kind of I'm toying around with the idea of maybe having, because it's apparent that in looking at the numbers, we always have about the same 40 people that are always here, and I think we've began to develop kind of a little bit of a community, and I'm tossing around the idea of maybe having either a Telegram channel where it's a private Telegram channel, or a Signal channel, or something like that, where we can send invites and we can all kind of keep in communication, and if you have questions throughout the week, you can ask them and whatnot. So
that might not be a bad idea.
I'm just throwing it out there. So if you guys let me know kind of what you think in the comments and in the comments below of the video, and just thinking of a way that we can communicate a little bit more. I love the sense of community that we have, for this 1 hour every Tuesdays, and it'd be kind of cool.
It's been a lot of fun.
It'd be kind of nice to expand that to, because for the rest of the time, whether the rest of the week. So just a thought.
Ooh, good reaction to that proposal.
I do have a Discord account, but I don't use it. I only had it because I used to play a game where in order to access certain stuff, I needed to be on Discord. And be honest with you, I'm not a fan of Discord, but it might just simply because I never properly learned how to use it. It might be wonderful.
It's Discord. Discord. I have Discord. I have to because I'm in the crypto community, and there's a lot of people in there that use Discord, and it's cool, but it's a little bit it's a little much, and especially for people of an older generation, it's going to be a little bit more challenging to learn. It's the Signal or Telegram; those are going to be a lot less complicated, a lot more simple.
Yeah, I'm on Telegram, but I don't use it a whole lot. I read. I don't put out on it, but put out like messages and stuff like that. But
right.
I had to.
So, anyway, it was just kind of a thought that came to me. So, anyway, just.
All right. Well, anyway, once again, it's great seeing y'all, and we'll see you next week. And like I said, I'll do what I can to make sure I'm on, even though I'm going to be out of state, but I'll like I said, I've already decided I'm gonna go down to the local library and all that. And in this, and I believe the mask mandate's not done until the end of March in that state, but we'll see. So anyway, all right, I'm out of here. See you guys next week. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Warhamster Ron for hosting it. Chat room. Yeah. Doug is a nerd too. Awesome. Yeah. You know, I have a Discord account. It was from my Star Trek Fleet Command game.
Nice.
But I don't play it anymore because I just don't have time to play games much.
Who has time to play games
now that I play on occasion is called Bricks and Balls.
We still play pool.
On rare occasion.
Yeah, me too.
But anyway,
all right, guys.
Okay.
Well, hey, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate. It's good as always to see you guys, and we'll see you next Tuesday at the absolute minimum.
All right, ciao, everybody.
All right, bye.
Good night, all.